Welcome to Backyard Cigars. So glad that you could join me once again. Today we're going to go to Puerto Rico and we're going to take a look at a brand of cigars, a company that produces cigars that we've looked at before, Finca Neo jibairo, and they're based out in Rio Grande, Puerto Rico. They're a small farm-to-table farm, and they also have a tobacco farm. It is a good-sized tobacco farm, and they're producing more and more. And they also source tobacco from, I believe, from Santiago, I believe, from the Dominican Republic, like many people do, right? But primarily they're dealing with their homegrown Puerto Rican tobacco and the Dominican tobacco that they purchase out in Santiago. And I don't know if they're just purchasing from Santiago, by the way. They could be purchasing from a variety of locations and farms out in DR, but that's their business. They keep that quiet, but they do have excellent Dominican tobacco. So they're getting primo stuff. They're not getting run of the mill Dominican tobacco. No sirree. They're doing something big, and this is the closest that they've come to a Puerto Rican puro. This is it. Right now, what we're going to smoke today, we're going to take a closer look at it right now. We're going to come back and we're going to smoke this and we're going to talk a little bit about it. Welcome to a closer look as we take a look at this Puerto Rican cigar that is almost a Puerto Rican puro. Elaborado exclusivamente por Antonio Castro Barreto. See that? That eagle looks as he is holding a Molotov cocktail there. There's the Escopeta, which is basically like a shotgun. It is a shotgun. And these are your buckshots there. El Club del Turro. There is the tobacco leaf that the eagle is holding. It's a very nice thought out band. I really like the band. I dropped it earlier and that cracked right away, but that's coming right off, so I'm not that concerned about that. So this is a Puerto Rican leaf, Puerto Rican wrapper. I think it looks great. Let's see how it smokes. Well, I hope you enjoyed the closer look. We just covered the basics. We know that they're based out in Puerto Rico, Rio Grande. We know that they've been around now post Maria, so we're talking about 7-8 years now, the better part of a decade, and they've shown a lot of growth, not just in their tobacco products, but on the things that they do on the farm, the events that they hold, the B&B style in setting, sort of like camping, but glamping, if you will, and they hold all kinds of events, musical events as well. So they keep very busy, and I think that side of the business really helps them spend more money on the tobacco and get better results, because now this cigar was released originally in 2022, and I remember speaking with them, and they're telling me this is the closest that we have gotten to a puro. We actually used Puerto Rican wrapper. We actually grew Puerto Rican wrapper good enough, of a good enough grade to use to wrap a cigar. And so again, like what happened in the Dominican Republic when a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but when one individual told Carlito Fuente that, you know, he wasn't really producing. You know, they were a little harsh when they told him that you're not really making cigars, you're not really a cigar maker, you're just, you know, you take from here and there. And I thought that that was an unfair comment, but he took it to heart, and he took it to mean that if I want to do it the right way, I've got to, you know, wrapper, binder, filler, and have control of all of that on my farms. And of course, you know, there might be more to that story, because he might have been, it was something of a quest already in the Dominican Republic, trying to grow wrapper leaf. It was just difficult. So Carlito may have already been thinking about doing it, or in some shape or form he might have already experimented, and he might have had poor results. I know a lot of people experimented in DR trying to grow that wrapper, and they just weren't successful. And there were all kinds of reasons for it. But what I'm saying is, you know, that if that comment propelled him to actually achieve it and grow the wrapper leaf, then, you know, that's great, right? Whatever motivation you can use. But in Puerto Rico, it's been awfully difficult as well. And it's been done before, unlike DR, that didn't really do it well. They did it, but it was a very poor grade, or it was unsatisfactory, or it was crops plagued by disease, and or small leaves that were growing, and it's just not profitable and sustainable. So it was done to a certain degree in DR, but not really, right? But in Puerto Rico, it was a thing. It wasn't big on wrapper leaf, but it did have it. It did grow it. And you did find cigars that were wrapped in Puerto Rican leaf. Now, you usually found them on the island. In terms of exporting it, the United States, you know, classified it as domestic tobacco, and it was considered very good for binder and filler. But they never really looked for their wrapper. And it was only for a very short period of time that one can say Puerto Rico had decent wrapper leaf, and it wasn't even great, right? So yeah, very similar to DR, we could say. Maybe they had a little bit more of an advantage with their connections to Cuba, and of course going back further, whereas DR didn't have that in their history. They're kind of newcomer. Well, they're not newcomers anymore, but they were kind of considered newcomers to the cigar industries, and it wasn't something where it was part of their culture like that. But again, these places, sometimes tobacco grows wild, right? And it's not unknown to hear about tobacco growing in Barbados or wherever, these places that are suitable to grow the plant. But that doesn't always mean that it's a crop you want to use for your cigars. Boy, have I rambled. All I'm trying to get at is really that it's been difficult for Puerto Rico to even get back to a point where they made a decent wrapper leaf, and now here they've harvested a Puerto Rican Corojo, HVA, Havana Vuelta Abajo, Puerto Rican Corojo wrapper. The binder is Puerto Rican Corojo from their farm as well. The filler is Puerto Rican Corojo with Dominican Ligero. So, as I was saying, in 2022, when they were planning this, I was in talks with them because I wanted to get a hold of some. Excuse me. And I remember they said, this is going to be a limited edition. This is a blend that we kind of did for just the employees and the owners, just for us. And we made 500. And I think he mentioned they had made a small batch for themselves first to go through the stages of testing the blend and so forth. And then 500 was the limited edition. They released it. It sold out pretty quick. I got a hold of 5 right away because I got the message and I went on the site and I got them. I waited about 6 months before smoking the first one, and I thought it was good. I thought it was very good. And then I laid down the other 4. So I ended up getting them actually probably in early 2023. So they were released in 2022 in I'm gonna say I had to do that. I'm gonna say they were probably released in November. I picked up a 5er then, and then in January I picked up another 5er. So I went through 4 of the first 5, and now I'm smoking one of the remaining 5. So I've got a good number of them, and this one is actually about a year and a half old. It's been in the humidor for about a year and a half at 66 RH. They had a weird kind of roll to them, but it's like, this is a Robusto, but it's not quite sure if it's box pressed or if it's a faux box press, and it's not quite super round either. It's kind of weird, right? It's like a faux box press, but I know you saw it earlier in the closer look, but holding it as you're smoking it, it also feels a little different, just a little. But all that I've said, and I haven't said one word about what I'm tasting, and that's what you're really here for, right? I guess. All right, so Corojo flavor, but I would say different. It's a distinct flavor of Corojo. It's not your typical Corojo that you would experience from Nicaragua or Honduras or anything like that. The original 500 that they made, they used Corojo for the wrapper and the binder, but for the filler they used Puerto Rican Criollo mixed with the Dominican Ligero. So that is the original release of that particular one. And then for the second release, the only change they made was to use Puerto Rican Corojo in the filler as opposed to the Criollo. And that was the only difference in the blend. So that's what I'm smoking right now. I'm smoking the second release. I do have the first release. I have a cigar left of the first release, and I'm gonna tell you any differences if I note any between the Corojo and the filler and the Criollo. But I'm already noticing something, but I'm gonna let it simmer, and I'm gonna talk to you more about it as we go along. Light spices, a healthy dose of cedar, an abundance of earthiness, but it's not overwhelming either. It's not like dirt earthiness. It's just a nice general tobacco earthiness. Very nice finish. Light spices in the finish. Trace of salt. Medium bodied. Medium in strength. And I would say a robust flavor despite a year and a half in the humidor. It leaves in the finish, it leaves this feeling of a nicotine strength. You know what I mean? Like it's not a harshness. It's more like it's very dense, and the smoke is just, it's rich. It's Cuban-esque. It is. That it is. I'm not going to tell you it isn't. It is. Is a hint of that Cuban-esque. If you didn't know any better, you'd think that maybe there's a little bit of some kind of ometepe or some kind of Nicaraguan in the blend, because you know you get a little bit of that spice and that spiciness and the sweetness at once. And ometepe is known for that. And then generally you get like a good hint of strength, but it's never something strong. It's just strong enough, and it lets you know it's there. Yeah, this is pleasing. This is really pleasing. This is really good. And mind you, it's been almost a year and a half since I had the last one that I had from the original release. And I don't know, I'm liking this second release better than the first, than the one from the 500 limited. So it was originally, like I said, a 500 cigar drop limited release. And after it sold out so quickly, they regrouped, and I think it was a year's time, and they regrouped and they went back and they released a second edition of the cigar, but this time they made it part of the regular lineup. So now it's regular production. What does it cost? When I bought it initially, I think I paid about $15 for it. But I think the price on these may have even dropped to about 12, 13. I could be wrong on that. It could still be at 15. But I think it may have dropped to about 12 to $13 for the second release. But the first release was 15. And you know, I thought the world of the first release. I thought it was so good. So good. I mean, I laid it down for 6 months and I enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought it was also a little, to me, I thought it was also a little spicier. It was a little spicier, and it was very well balanced, but I think this one tops it in balance. And, you know, one could say, oh, but Jose, you've aged this, let's say, a year longer than the one you smoked. True. And sure, that could round off some of those spicy notes and things like that. But I just think that, well, knowing them and speaking with them, when they went back to the drawing board for the second release, they were like, how can we make this better? How can we make this better? And, you know, the Puerto Rican Criollo was good. It was good. But their Corojo was just a little better. And from the get, they have been growing Corojo, and I just feel like that's their strength, right? Like that seed variety, that Corojo. I'm not saying that their Criollo should be cast aside or ignored in any way, but I think that for me, their Corojo has been a staple in the tobaccos that they have used, and they've done it so well, really so well. I mean, there you go, look at that. But it's gonna drop on me any minute now, so I'm gonna just and you know, I don't always think of cigar pairings as I'm smoking a cigar, although as cigar smokers that does come to mind sometimes, right? Like what could I pair with this if I was having a, you know, an evening smoke. And I just think that a very rich bourbon, high proof, would go, not because this is a strong cigar. No, it's just the flavor profile, the way that this tobacco is tasting. You could pair this with, I think you could pair this with a, high proof Elijah Craig barrel proof. I think you could pair this as well with an imperial stout, American or Belgian, you choose. I think you could also pair this with a hefty Cabernet Sauvignon. You could definitely do that. So I see those pairings, and I think, to my mind, they would taste really good together. You could smoke it standalone. You don't even, I'm not pairing anything right now. I'm smoking it alone and enjoying the heck out of it. El Club del Turro. That's the organization and the club within the cigar company that distributes as well and promotes the cigars at Club del Turro. I haven't mentioned anything about the aroma, construction, or anything like that, but I haven't had any issues with the construction. And the aroma is pretty good. It's general good smelling cigar. Nothing out of the ordinary in terms of the aroma. But it's a nice, rich, dense smoke, and it, I actually feel that while these cigars do age well, there's a stark difference when you smoke these fresh. The spiciness is obviously more up front. Certain flavors come off a little younger. Their tobacco is usually aged about 3 years, which is pretty good. That's pretty good. They age their corojo about 3 years. I'd say for their binder 2 years, but for their filler 3 years. And the wrapper on this, I think, was about 3 years as well. So, for the most part, 3-year-old tobacco with a little bit of 2-year-old. And it's not overly aged or anything. So when you get them fresh, they are, they're robust in flavor. And I just think after a year and a half, there's going to be the normal smoothing out of flavors when you age and you put down cigars. But I just think it's just a preference, really. I mean, like, what's better? Like right now I'm enjoying this smooth, not silky, but smooth, sweet, slightly spicy, slightly earthy, and with the hints of cream at time. But when I smoked it fresh, it was abundant. In flavor, and the flavor was more prominent in certain spice notes and things like that. But I wouldn't say that makes it better. It just made it different, and slightly different only. And I still enjoyed it thoroughly. So it's really up to you whether you want to just lay down for a month or so and then smoke them. They're being shipped out directly from Puerto Rico, so I like to lay them down for minimum a month before even smoking one. But I think it's really a preference. It's really medium strength. There's nothing strong about this cigar at all. And the flavor, I wouldn't say it goes through many transitions here. It's been steady, more or less the same from the time I lit it to now. I'm getting more or less the same flavors. Yeah, sure, I'm not getting as much cedar now as I got in the beginning. That's about it. Despite how good it tastes, I also feel it's still a very simple cigar. It's not overly complex, and that's not to knock it. It really isn't. But why am I saying it if I'm not knocking it? Well, I'm just saying it because I'm saying it in the sense of transitions and so forth. You're not going to get many of those. And you'll get some. They'll be minor, but it's not that type of cigar. But like I said, it's not a big deal. that you don't have huge transitions and so forth. I think overall, it's just a good cigar, and I'm thoroughly impressed with what they've been able to do with their small farm. And you know, they've come a long way. They had a dream, they visualized it. I remember from the beginning, um, when they really got going. 2020 was it was difficult for them, right? Because everything was shut down. They couldn't do the other side of the business to uh, grow, and then 2021 was just a very successful year for them, despite minor pitfalls. And I remember talking with them, and they had released a different cigar at the time, I think in 2020 or in 2019, and it was using a lot of Puerto Rican tobacco. And I remember being very, very impressed with that cigar, almost feeling like that was a Cuban cigar. And then they said, well, you know, this cigar that we're releasing, Escopeta, is going to be even closer to a Puerto Rican puro. And I was just thinking, wow, how far they've come in achieving this, and they're one step closer to being able to produce a Puerto Rican puro. And why do I harp about that? Well, it's just it's a proudful thing. It's a pride thing for any nation, country, tobacco region that is, or for that matter, just any cigar company that is trying to make a puro. Like everybody knows, you can make a Nicaraguan puro easy, right? You can make a Honduran puro easy. There's a lot of different puros that you can make easy. And then there are other puros that is like difficult because you're missing part of the equation. You can't grow wrapper leaf for that particular variety of tobacco from that region. And so like DR had that issue. They don't really have that anymore, that issue. Puerto Rico's had it. They're trying to overcome it. They want to also grow wrapper leaf. And wrapper leaf is where you get a lot of people talking about your tobacco, right? I mean, yeah, they'll talk about your filler. Your filler's great, but wrapper leaf can be very special to a lot of tobacco growers and makers. I just love the finish on the cigar. Just love the way all those baking spices and the hints of cedar and slight creaminess with a little saltiness. It's just really good. And of course you get a lot of the traditional corojo notes, the earthiness and everything, and it just really works well. Really. I definitely want to say that yes, it's Cubanesque, but it's not going to be exactly like a Cuban cigar, right? But it has that feeling, and that is a plus for some of us that like that. There is a Puerto Rican twang, just like there's a twang for a lot of different nations, you know, African twang and so forth. And I think on the Puerto Rican twang, it's more similar to a Cuban twang, and kind of similar to a Florida twang. And but these particular tobaccos are similar. It's just my experience with them, and that's how I feel about them. But you might disagree, and that's fine. But yeah, really smooth, really good tasting tobacco here. There's nothing to complain about here. I don't have a problem placing a decent size order and paying the $10 shipping, which used to be more during COVID. And really now I just feel like these are cigars that I seek out and put them away for one of those days that I don't want to be disappointed. Really. I mean, that's just how I feel about them. There are a lot of other small cigar makers out there that are the same. I feel the same way about John Hayes. John Hay Cigars out in Pennsylvania. I feel the same way about certain small Dominican brands out in Philadelphia. And these are just good cigars to have. And at $12, $13, they're the going rate. I think they're giving you the sufficient amount of quality and satisfaction that you won't complain. And they're not your typical tobaccos either, right? Smaller production, smaller operation, different kind of care goes into them. I'm not saying better care. I'm not saying that it makes them better. I'm just saying that that's a difference in the production. And really, I've enjoyed this cigar like I enjoyed it the first time on the original release. And I really don't mess with it. I think it's fine the way it is. If you want to, at one point, try and release a third release of the Escopeta where it is completely Puerto Rican, meaning you eliminate the Dominican Ligero and probably try and put in some Puerto Rican Ligero in there and then see where it goes from there. Maybe throw in some Puerto Rican Criollo as well. I would be down for that. I really would. I love these guys. I think what they're doing is great. And I don't just say that because, of La Patria. I don't say that because I've spoken to them and they're nice guys. They could have been pricks. But if they're making a fine cigar, I have to say they're making a fine cigar. And but good to know that they're not pricks. Most of the people that you encounter within the cigar industry, they're not pricks. But you have a few. I mean, you just can't get away from it. It's life. But yeah, they're really open to suggestions. They're open to the dialogue. I mean, when I've spoken with them, they're always very interested to hear what I think. They are very confident in what they do, so it's not like they're unsure of themselves. And that goes a long way. You've got to be proud and confident in what you're making and what you're putting out. And they're always ecstatic about it, but they're not. I don't feel like they're ever overselling it. When they talk to me and they're so enthusiastic, I just take it as they've worked hard and they deserve a victory lap. And they know that it's good. And I know when I smoke something if it's good. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I can tell if it's good. I think you'll like this. I think dale a Puerto Rico una oportunidad. Give Puerto Rico a chance, a try, an opportunity. I think you'll like it. And I don't mean just going out there to vacation and checking them out, because that's fun to do as well. I'm due to do that as well and stay at their little glamping station for a few nights and soak up the rays and enjoy the rum and all the great food and stuff. But really, I'd be looking forward to one of these in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. Gracias. Until the next time on Backyard Cigars.